how are you going to represent my brand? And we were just kind of talking about this a little bit, that we really work the phones, right? We're making phone calls on behalf of our clients, and that takes a lot of trust, right? Because if you're going to outsource your appointment setting to a partner, they're going to represent your brand, and your brand is the biggest asset you have. So I guess I kind of answered this for you here, but why else is this question so important to ask?
So I think that when companies engage with a partner, especially to do prospecting, appointment setting, lead generation, one of the things that's really important to think of, and a lot of our clients who do come to us do think of this. We work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies who are potentially hesitant because they don't want to do anything that can tarnish their brand. But I urge everybody to think about this, because for a lot of these programs, whoever you choose, whatever partner it is, whatever SDR is going to be speaking on your behalf, is going to be sometimes the first time that prospect hears about your brand. And we all know the old adage about first impressions, right? You don't want to have to try to fix any damage that can be done. And unfortunately, if a program isn't structured right, if you don't have the right type of individuals representing your brand, you can do damage. And it's not only just a positive thing that can happen for these programs, it can be a negative thing. And so we think that that's just something that's important for people to think about as they are vetting a provider, and think about the fact that this partner will be your organization. They are an extension of you. They are an extension of your brand. They are your brand. And so asking questions around that and understanding how and if they take that responsibility seriously is a really important thing to discuss with a potential partner.
Yeah, not much else to say there. How do we verify it, right? Because they're going to say, oh, of course, we're going to represent you professionally. And you have a tip for us here on how you can really go ahead and confirm this, which is ask how they're going to train their SDRs on your product. And I think there are two parts of this that are really important. They're their agents, right? Like, they're the ones that are training them. They're the ones that hired and recruited them, but it's your product. And so the company is going to need to create a training program that put those two things together. So when people, if you were to ask an appointment setting partner about how they train their SDRs on your product, one, why do you think this is a good follow-up, and what are some things you might look for?
So I would ask them that in a general way. I'd ask them, how are they going to have their SDRs get trained on your product and be able to represent your brand, and see how they react. There are organizations out there that will do an hour or two of training. And if you think about anybody you would hire internally, if you would turn them loose on the phones to represent your brand with a prospect, would you feel comfortable with that? And so ask first, how long is the training with the SDRs? And then take it one step back, because are they going to just train them by looking at your website? Are they going to just talk about it? Or are they going to build a training program for your brand, for the approach that they're going to take, how they're going to answer certain types of questions? And I think that that's really important to understand the methodology. It's one of the things that is value add, I think, in this, because a lot of times organizations don't have time internally to build a full training program. But that's what's required, not only to generate the appointments, the qualified appointments that you're looking for, but to make sure that the individuals who are representing you in the right way, and being able to engage with a prospect the right way the first time.
Yeah, and that goes back to the idea of impressions, right? The first time, from the second they pick up the phone, they need to know what they're talking about. 100%. So I'll tee up 3 of these for you. We actually have a question from the audience here. So I'll let you answer from a SalesRoads perspective here, and it might flow right into Melissa's question. So Melissa asked, do you do one-time training for client products, or is training ongoing? So I guess from a SalesRoads perspective, how do we train our SDRs on client products? And is that a one-time event, or is that ongoing?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So let me back up, and I'll walk through the whole methodology and touch on Melissa's question as part of that. So what we do at SalesRoads is, before we even do any training, we will create what we call a demand generation playbook. And so that is our strategic roadmap for how we are going to prospect on behalf of our client, how we are going to represent them, and how we are going to train the SDRs on the general aspects of that company's organization. And so for the first 2 weeks, we're developing that whole rigorous training program for our clients. And before we even start training the SDRs, we present that to our client to make sure that we are representing them in the right way. The things that we're going to say are things that they are comfortable with, and to make sure that they agree with the strategy. So once they sign off on that, then we spend a full week training the SDRs before they pick up the phone to call a prospect. And so that is rigorous to really make sure that they understand the company, they understand the approaches, and that they can actualize them in a conversation. So we will do lots of internal role play to make sure that they're able to pivot, that they're able to sound the right way, they're able to engage, ask the right types of questions. And then before we go live, we actually invite the client on to do a role play as well, so that they can really hear the SDR, they can give us some feedback and things like that, and then we launch. So that's the initial training. But Melissa, you bring up a great point. It doesn't start there. That's just the beginning. So we do the first 2 days on the phones, we do debriefs at the end of the day. We do call listening, we do some more role play. We might pivot or change the approach slightly based upon what we're hearing and the success that we're having. And so there's a lot of iteration or mini trainings the first 2 days. And then we have what we call a talent development manager at SalesRoads. And that person is just tasked with doing call listening, understanding what's working across the SDR team, and doing training and continued role play. So we continue to get better over time, because if you just have somebody go and they're on an island by themselves, they might be able to do okay work. They might be able to even do good work, but they can do so much better if they're continuously being trained, coached, and mentored, and the methodology is iterated based upon success.
That makes a lot of sense. So there were a couple of things I heard there, and I hope that answers your questions, Melise. Looks like she might have a follow-up here too. So first, client alignment, right? We're going to build this training program. The client needs to review it. So if you're working with an appointment setting partner and they're moving faster than that, if there's in a review stage, they're probably moving too quickly, right? Because you're going to spend an entire week, or we do at least spend an entire week then training the SDRs on this material. The second really important thing I heard you say, though, was the iterative process. So the product training doesn't end when you start calling. That's really just the start, because you're going to learn things from calling, right? When you're on the phone talking to decision makers, you get real-time feedback. You get a lot of feedback, right? Who's picking up the phone? Who's not picking up the phone? Are they happy to hear from you? Do they have a pain? Do they not? And that's really enlightening. And you need to take advantage of that part of the medium, because it's a two-way dialogue. Like you and I here are talking. I'm not talking directly with the audience, right? But the advantage of that two-way dialogue is you really get that immediate feedback. And the phone has that advantage. So it isn't just training up front. It's ongoing training as the campaign gets rolling to continually improve over time.
100%.